got the blood going, didn't it? So we're on week 4 of a 4-week series that we've been looking at. We started with abundant living, and then we moved into intentional living. Then last week we talked about conscious living, and we're moving into joyful living. And I've been talking about how they all build on each other, right? That they support each other so that we can show up anyway, right? We can show up because we're anchored in our principles and practices that allow us to be able to continue to be that loving presence in the world. And last week we spent some time talking about affirmative prayer, but we also talked about the 4 stages of evolving consciousness. And the invitation was for you to sit with these stages of evolving consciousness throughout your day, throughout your week, and just notice, when were you in victim consciousness? When did you feel like things were happening to you? And then when were you in manifestor or victor consciousness? When did you feel like, I'm making this happen, right? And boy, does that feel good, especially when we've been in victim consciousness, right? It feels really good to be empowered in some way. And then maybe there were moments where you felt like things were moving through you, right? That's interesting. That's not the most up-to-date PowerPoint. This will be interesting to see what happens with my talk. 'Cause that's not the most up-to-date PowerPoint. Channel or vessel consciousness, right? Where we feel as if, when you hear people say, I downloaded something, or, all of a sudden I just, turned left and I didn't know why. That is that channel consciousness where things are happening through us. And then that place is our invitation to move into the Christ Buddha consciousness, where there's not something outside of us moving through us. Can you feel how even in channel consciousness there's this sense of somehow being separate? Into the place where we can really stand as the Christ, Buddha, Atman consciousness, as me. And not little me, not ego me, but the divinity that we are. And I talked about how these nest, and we've all experienced that, right? You're riding high, you're having a great time, and bam, something happens, and you are in victim consciousness. It's just, we can contract down in a heartbeat. And that's okay. What we want to bring, as we were focusing on last week with consciousness, is we want to just bring awareness. Bring loving awareness to where we are, and then use our skills, our practices, our principles to help move us away from a point of suffering. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm in victim consciousness, I'm suffering. So we have tools that move us from fear or problem focus into faith, into vision. And so the other things that you were invited into, no, that's okay, is, so we had noticing the stages of evolving consciousness. The invitation was to identify the areas of growth, right? And this was about intentionality, bringing self-awareness and discernment, right? And vision into your life. And then, what are the principles? What are you activating? If nothing else, just do the affirmations and negations. If everything else feels overwhelming to you, because it can, all you need to say is, this has no power over me. I am declaring this has no power over me. And then state what you do give power to. I am love, even in the midst of chaos. I am joy, even in the midst of grief. I am, what are you, rather than what you're not, right? We want to focus on what we are. And so I wonder if you noticing, I think my wife's trying to find me. It's okay, don't worry about it, babe. She's trying to find the other PowerPoint. That these 4 weeks mirror the levels in consciousness. So if we don't have an abundance mindset, we fall into victim consciousness because we think there's not enough. We think there's lack. We think, right? If we don't have an abundance consciousness, we don't see possibility. And when we don't see possibility, when we don't see potential, we become a victim to the circumstances around us. And intentionality is so important, especially in New Thought, that we bring intention to what it is that we are saying and doing and being. And can you feel how that moves us into manifester? How that moves into the idea that I'm able to activate something? And then we have the compassionate awareness, consciousness, being compassionately aware. And that comes online, quote unquote, when we are in that channel consciousness. When we're not in fear anymore. It's really hard to be compassionate when we are afraid. Can you feel the truth of that? So it's in channel consciousness, we start to leave the power of fear to be in control. And we enter into a place where compassionate awareness is present for us. And then Christ Buddha consciousness. Is everybody with me today for joyful living? Yeah. Right? That all of these pieces are the building blocks for how we are being invited to live a joyful life. And I want to state again, like, if you are looking at this and you're going, oh my goodness, I spend so much time in victim consciousness, do not beat yourself up, right? No beating yourself up. This is where you're being invited to be compassionate with yourself and to just acknowledge we cannot shift what we have not recognized. So if we can recognize, wow, look at how I'm falling down the rabbit hole here. I have been catching myself on the edge of that rabbit hole it's been a couple months now, right? If I'm totally honest. I'm circling, right? Catching myself, right? I find myself catastrophizing. Anybody in here catastrophizing? Okay, so we, in those moments, we get to bring compassion to the part of me, to the part of you that's afraid, thinks there's something to be afraid of. And we get to then anchor our teachings so that we are moving ourselves into that more compassionate place for ourselves. And I know this is the hard part, but also for the people who we think are doing something to us. We have to step into that awareness of oneness, that there is no other. It's really hard. It's hard with what's going on in our world right now. So can you see? Oh, there it is. I see what I did. I only updated the second slide and not the first one. So we have victim, manifester, channel, Christ Buddha, right? So I loved this. I found that a life of joy is a life of purpose and vision. And that's not often what we think about joy. We think joy is connected to pleasure. We think joy is connected to happiness. And I want to disconnect you from that understanding of joy, because we're talking about joy that is a constant. It is immutable. It is a divine idea. Happiness, does that come and go? Pleasure, does that come and go? Right? Joy is something that is always our birthright, and it is independent of circumstances. So William James says, the true joy in life is the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Can you feel how it's like being used, channel consciousness, recognized by yourself, I am consciousness, as being a mighty one. And Mark Twain, of course, find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. All right? That understanding of that our passion is what fuels our joy, but our passion has to be directly linked to the divine idea of our understanding. What it is that we are being called to become. How are we being called to answer the call from the greatest sense of who we are? Not the part of us that wants to play it safe. The part of us that knows that there is some leading edge. You all know what it is. The leading edge. Is it that family member that you need to figure out a new way to handle and navigate and be present with? Truly from a place of love? Is that your leading edge? What is it that you are being called to show up as your whole divine self? And that ultimately is going to bring you joy. So while it's not quote unquote work, as Mark Twain would say, it does ask something of us. It asks us to stand in something. And I was sitting with what that is, and the first thing that came to me was authenticity. That in order for us to truly live a joyful life, we truly need to stand in our most authentic self. With all our quirks, with all our foibles, with all the things that we, the rough spots, the pimples, the whole thing. We need to stand in our most authentic self. Because if we're not doing that, then the ability to truly show up with passion for the vision is being stunted. We need to have courage. I taught yesterday at Unity of Sacramento, and we're doing the history and development of New Thought. Tom made the schlep. He was there with everyone. And we're doing a lot of Emerson. We're reading Self-Reliance. And Emerson, who's considered the grandfather of New Thought, is hammering home this idea of nonconformity. Nonconformity, self-trust. Be the weirdo in the room. Right? Be the weirdo in the room. Be the one who is awkward and people kind of look at, and it doesn't matter. Because when Josh was here and he was singing, that is authenticity, right? He is being his most authentic self, and we all respond to it. We can feel the authenticity. So it takes courage to do that. We have to stand in the passion. We can't go to sleep at the wheel if we really want to live a joyful life. We have to have tenacity, because living a joyful life does not mean that it's always easy. It means that we have to be willing to root ourselves in something. And then we have to be compassionate. And the vision is the thing that is always going to pull us forward. If you are feeling as if you're not sure where the joy is in your life, chances are it's because you have lost sight of the greater vision of who you are called to be and who this world is called to be. And I get it. It can be overwhelming sometimes to be holding a vision anyway, right? But that is the work that we have said yes to. Just by being in these skins, we've said yes to it. So Norman Fisher, when we did our book study on Norman Fisher and the Bodhisattva way and the 6 perfections, one of them was joyful effort. And I really loved that understanding, that living a joyful life asks something. There's an effort involved in living a joyful life. You can't be passive and live a joyful life. So it involves, I love how he says this, it involves an energetic activity in the pursuit of goodness that is propelled by passion, purpose, and love, not power. It's so easy for our egos to get caught up in what it is that we think we're called to do. It's so easy for us to get attached to what we think it is that we are supposed to obtain, what it is that we're supposed to arrive at. The money in our bank account, the degrees that we have after our names, the people in our world, who we know, who we don't know, all of those things. We are being invited to be propelled by passion, purpose, and love, not by that part of us that is weighing and judging and comparing and all of that. I love this too, Theodore Roosevelt. Comparison is the thief of joy. And comparison, criticism, and categorizing are acts of violence to the wholeness of reality. We think we're bringing our rational, logical thought to something, but all we're doing is keeping ourselves in problem consciousness, and in problem consciousness, it is all separation. So we're being invited. This was at the Marin Interfaith Breakfast, and Abbot Richmond Byler spoke, and he said something like that, because he said it, and I'm like frantically typing it into my iPhone. But the part that really got me was that it's an act of violence. I don't think we really acknowledge that. That when we're caught up in separation and when we're caught up in criticizing and judging and comparing and contrasting, that we're doing violence to the fabric of reality. Can you feel how much ease is on the other side of that? I mean, as I read that, I'm like, oh, because the violence happens within my heart. And it's everywhere, so we have to stand in something. Be a fountain, not a drain, right? Be a fountain, not a drain. If you just need to hold one thing in your day, all day, every day, is I am a fountain. I am not a drain. I am a fountain. So what is it that you are bringing forth into the world, rather than what are you trying to get from the world? Because we know in our teaching that giving is actually the getting. And that is part of living a joyful life. So y'all get to practice, because tomorrow is Random Acts of Kindness Day, right? Random Act of Kindness Day. And small acts of kindness can bring immeasurable joy. And remember, it was one of our practices way back in week 1, the abundant consciousness. The practice was to go out there and do small acts of kindness. My favorite one now is anytime I am in a public restroom, I clean it up. I wipe down the sinks, and I look around. Is there stuff on the floor? I pick it up, I put it in the garbage. Small act of kindness, right? And it doesn't take that much, honestly, it doesn't take that much effort, but I gotta say, it's really satisfying. It's like, I'm leaving this better than I found it. And that's the consciousness we want to bring to everything we do, right? Always trying to leave things better than we found it. So how do we support our joy? So we have meditation and affirmative prayer. Those are foundational tools. We have to answer the call. We have to show up in the vision and the divine purpose that is ours, uniquely ours. And if you're sitting here right now, like I remember when I first started to go to Agape, I was talking to a practitioner, and I said, I don't have a divine purpose. And I really meant it too. And she just looked at me and she's like, why do you think you're the exception? And I was like, why do I think I'm the exception? Everyone else has a divine purpose, except for me. So if you think you don't have a divine purpose, there are no exceptions. There are no exceptions. Notice what energizes you. So this class that I taught yesterday, it was a lot of work, because of course you know me, right? So I get the curriculum that they say I'm supposed to do, and I look at it and I think, oh, that is boring. And so, of course, I have to rebuild the entire curriculum, right? I can't just do what I was given. I have to rebuild it all. And, right, well, you know, but this is me showing up in my most authentic self. If I tried to do that curriculum, that wouldn't be authentic for me. So I had to put joyful effort into reworking that curriculum, finding the way that it spoke to my heart, finding the way that I could, you know, I love storytelling, so I made a story out of the history, right? Linking that story up chapter by chapter by chapter. And that worked. That was my authentic self. That was what I was showing up as. And I was tired. I'm not gonna lie. I was tired. There is so much going on here. And then I showed up at that class. And those individuals at Unity of Sacramento, and this is like the fourth class I've taught there, you know, I love them. I love them. And I walked into that space, and my joy just unfurled. Wasn't tired anymore. Wasn't hungry, thirsty. I wasn't even paying attention. Chris kept saying to me, she's like, honey, on this break, you need to eat something. Because it was 5 hours, right? And I was just in the flow of my passion, my love for these teachings, my love for sharing these teachings, my love for history, my love for the narratives that we get to create and how we get to build them, and my love for being in a room with people who are as hungry and curious and adventurous as I am. And so I was able to access this joy. And it was an effort. I mean, I got out of there at the end of the class. I thought I was going to die when I kind of came back to like myself, right? And I was like, I'm tired. But there was this like centeredness. There was this thing inside of me that was just, nothing was going to extinguish that. And I have to say, I needed that reminder. I needed that reminder of my purpose. But do you see how it required an effort for me to actually stand in my purpose? That's what I'm inviting all of you into. And then practicing gratitude. All I did on the way home was just give thanks for that community, for their willingness to go with me, for their showing up, for my wife driving me, right? Like gratitude, appreciation for Tom saying yes and coming and being there as well, adding another dimension to what was happening in the room. And then seek the support. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to be all by yourself. No man is an island. Like, you don't have to do this alone. Just look around. There's all these people that want to support you. If you don't know what your divine purpose is, talk to somebody. Really, talk to somebody. Because people can see you in a way that you don't allow yourself to see you. And then, really, nothing else, practice small acts of kindness. Just do a small act of kindness and allow yourself to feel the joy that comes from that small act of kindness. Rumi says, when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. This is how we're being invited to live. Joyful living. But it's not a passive process. We have to engage with ourselves on the deepest level. And we're never done. Whatever you thought your divine purpose was, it's always realigning and moving and shifting and honing and getting more nuanced. Look at where I ended up, right? This would not have been what I thought was my trajectory as a storyteller, as a person who believed in the narratives of stories to transform lives and make people think again. And yet, doesn't it make total sense that this is where I am? So we have to, right? We have to allow that river to be fluid, we to be fluid, but we're always staying aligned with what that divine purpose is within us. So let's take this into a time of meditation. Whatever's been stirred up within you, maybe there's an incident this week where you recognize the victim consciousness that you fell into. How can you reimagine that right now for yourself? What can you remind yourself of that would help you be able to realign with the truth of your being? Maybe you're just curious. What is my purpose? It's not about work. Your purpose is about who you have truly come here to be. How are you being invited to show up? What qualities are you being invited to inhabit, to stand as, that feel deeply, deeply authentic to you? What is that leading edge, maybe? And how are you being invited to grow so that you become more of who you truly are? More love, more joy, more purpose, more passion, more energy. So let's just rest here for a few moments in the silence as we allow ourselves to listen. Listen to that still small voice that is the I am that we all are. How good it is to be still and know. How good it is to be surrounded by a community that is in agreement that we are here to be so much more than anything we can possibly imagine right now. Agreement of our brilliance, of our unique genius, of our creativity, of our joy. And so I just invite you in this moment to just make a personal covenant with yourself, to say yes to something of anything that we've been working on for these last month. What is it that you are going to set your intention around? Prayer, meditation, visioning, self-awareness. What is it that you are saying yes to so that you can show up in your life with passion, with purpose, and with so much love? A fountain of joy. This is how we transform the world. How grateful I am. How truly grateful I am for this opportunity to realign. And in agreement, I invite you to know with me, and so it is. Amen. Ashe. So our affirmation today: I am a fountain of joy, infinitely sourced with passion, purpose, and love. Can we please know this together? I am a fountain of joy, infinitely sourced with passion, purpose, and love. Okay, so we're going to activate that a little bit, shall we? Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. So if you want to stand up, you don't need to, but just like wake up. You're waking something up, right? You're waking something up within yourself. And we're going to say this together. And we're going to say it. It doesn't have to be loud. It just needs to be purposeful, passionate, and centered in love. Yeah? Can we feel that? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. I am a fountain of joy, infinitely sourced with passion, purpose, and love. And so it is. Amen.